My name is Barack Obama.
Hi, I'm Mark Colombo. Thanks for stopping by for episode 2 of Dr. WOP and the Special Effects. On our first episode, we talked about some conspiracy theory topics. Today, we're going to try to go a little more politics. Politics is really hot right now. As a matter of fact, during this taping, we are missing the first session of the Republican national debate. We're going to be able to watch the second one when we're finished with this, because that's where the important people are, right? Okay. So anyway, today we have another guest, and our guest today is Chris Huddleston. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, doctor?
I'm doing great. By the end of this series, I think I'm really going to think I'm a doctor. I should probably explain. I didn't explain it on the first episode. The doctor I came up with, Dr. WOP, what that really stood for was D, dumb, R, redneck. So I was a dumb redneck Italian. I don't care if that offends anybody because I am Italian, so I can say that. And I am a dumb redneck. So that's where Dr. WOP comes from. And the special effects are just going to be random effects that happen throughout the show. Some I'll comment on, some I won't. You might see who knows what. But anyway, so no, I am not a real doctor. And I don't claim to be. However, I play one on YouTube. Okay.
I'd argue that you're not a real redneck either. But you are Italian.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to try to talk about today, first of all, let's dive right in. I want to ask Chris, what are your thoughts? Oh, for one, I should clarify one more thing. I think I've known Chris since middle school, and I think we both would identify ourselves as independents.
Yeah.
I think if you talk to us, you'll think that Chris maybe leans a little more to the left and I lean a little more to the right. However, I think if there was a fence there, our feet would probably be caught in that fence and we'd be flopping on both sides because we kind of agree with both sides. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So, that said, what are your thoughts on Obama?
I think Obama will, with any president, it's always years later, decades later, maybe 100 years later, before history really has a correct viewpoint or what historians think of a president, if that makes sense. I think Obama has been kind of a middle-of-the-road president. He hasn't been a great president. I certainly don't think he's the dictator that a lot of people on the right think that he is. The funny thing to me about that is he's simultaneously a horrible dictator and weak and ineffectual, the right says, which I think is hard to be. One thing that I say a lot of times, and people have kind of forgotten about when he was first running, but the people that believe that Obama's a Muslim, he's simultaneously a Muslim and a radical black Christian who was in, Reverend Wright's church, which That's always been funny to me. But I think Obama came in when there were a lot of bad things happening. Obviously, we had, we're still in the midst of terrorism that's been going on since 9/11. The economy was in really bad shape.
Terrorism's been going on.
Sure, but
since before 9/11.
Right. But kind of in a major way in the United States, it's been since we were fairly unaffected by terrorism. There was the attack on the World Trade Center back in '93 or whenever it was, and then there's the domestic terrorism like Timothy McVeigh, but nothing to the scale of 9/11.
Right.
So I think it would have been a difficult situation for any president to come into, and I'm not saying that was because he followed Bush per se. I think Bush did some things that I don't agree with, but the economy was obviously in really bad shape when he came in. And the funny thing is, despite the way the right views Obama as being this really radical socialist or whatever, I think Obama 30 or 40 years ago would have been of a Republican.
How do you see that?
Well, I think look at foreign policy that we had, say, during the first Bush administration. We went into Iraq, and some people have criticized the first President Bush for not finishing the job and going into Baghdad. I think he could see that was a bad idea, and we've seen what has happened by going into Baghdad. You know, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, but he was also a stabilizing force. You know, now we've got a total mess.
Right, it's chaos there now.
Yeah. So the first Bush, you know, like I say, some people have said, you know, he didn't finish the job. And, you know, then his son went and, you know, obviously almost all of Congress was, you know, went along with him, but they overthrew Saddam Hussein. Well, now, you know, while Obama has been in office, you know, part of what he kind of ran on and what I think people on the left thought he was going to do was end the war in Iraq, which we technically have ended, but, you know, we're still there doing stuff.
But see, that's where I feel that's part of the problem is I think that we should have. I do believe with the others that say we should have stayed there. We shouldn't have tried to pull out.
Right.
We needed to keep our presence there. And I think we had spoke some before we started. And I feel like I don't like war. Nobody really likes war, except for the people that profit from it. But
I think that's a big reason why we're there.
Yeah, but I think we should have stayed there and held a military presence, and I think that would have kind of kept this whole ISIS thing from spinning out of control. I think it still would have happened, or you know, would have been trying to happen in the background. But I think us having a military presence is what we should have done. But he was so big on we've got to pull out. I said I'm going to end it. I'm going to close Gitmo. I'm going to do all these things that I think were just the wrong way. We had the Iranians captured the sailors.
Right.
You know, that's crazy. I mean, that's like, you know, poking us with a stick, you know, and Obama's still not doing anything. Didn't want to get off your course there, but
sure.
But let me ask you this: what do you think that he's done well, that he's helped the country?
I'll preface this by saying I don't think Obama is a great president. There's a lot of things that I have not been happy with that he's done. He didn't really do a whole lot his first term. He really hasn't done much until kind of this final year or so when, you know, he's been, I know people on the right have a problem with executive actions, which all presidents have done. But personally, I feel the nuclear deal is the best thing that he's done, which I know drives Republicans crazy.
Yeah, I just don't see that because it's giving them too much. It's giving them money. It's giving.
Now here, let me stop you for a second. That's the $150 billion. That was money that had been seized by us and other countries. I think Germany was involved with that. And once they agreed to the deal, then we gave them that money back.
But what deal? I mean, they didn't really agree to anything. I mean, they gave us nothing is what I'm getting at. What did they give us?
Well, I mean, they're agreeing to that they're not going to make nuclear weapons.
But I mean, do you honestly think that they're not?
I don't think so.
I mean, you've heard them say "Death to America," and you know that they don't like us.
But look at. Have you ever seen the picture of Rumsfeld shaking hands with Saddam Hussein?
Yes.
Because you know it was the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
Our government doesn't really care whether another country is a democracy or they're the good guys or whatever, as long as they'll do what we want, which Saudi Arabia is an example of that, except for that they're funding terrorism that we're having to deal with. I don't feel that Obama is the liberal that Republicans feel that he is, because a real liberal would be saying, okay, we need to get out, I feel. You know, we've dropped 12,000 bombs on ISIS. We ran out of bombs. I mean, maybe he's not doing what you think he should be doing, but we're bombing a lot.
I would just think that we're the strongest force out there. I think we could put soldiers over there. I don't like when people say the other word, you know, boots on the ground.
Okay.
Anyway,
it's a cliche.
I think we can put people. I think we can put a military presence on the ground, and not eliminate the problem, because it's always going to be there. It's like a cockroach or like an evil that just won't die, and there's nothing you can do other than to try to control it and contain it a little bit. I don't think bombing is the answer, and especially because, again, with bombing, you're going to run into so many innocent casualties. But you're going to run into innocent casualties with people there as well, but less, because you're more focused in your physical one-on-one versus just, hey, we're going to drop a bomb and wipe everybody
Here's
out.
the thing. No one disputes the fact that we have the greatest military that the world's ever. The problem that you run into, and I agree with Kasich. He said, our military, kind of the cliche of, they're built to kill people and blow things up. What they're not meant for is occupations. When you run into problems is trying to occupy an area, which is what we're into now. I mean, we defeated Saddam Hussein, we defeated Iraq. Now we've got all these different factions now that have that are jockeying for power there, and so we're basically in the middle of a civil war. But I want to get back to where I don't feel that Obama is this super liberal. Obamacare, that so many people hate. It was Mitt Romney's program in Massachusetts. The Republicans started it in the 90s because when Bill Clinton was in office, they thought that Hillary, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Hillary was talking about healthcare reform, and they were afraid that she was going to try to do a single payer system like Canada or something. So they came up with their own plan, which is basically what Obamacare is. A big problem, Obamacare has improved things a little bit, but the insurance companies were involved from every step of the way.
Now let me interrupt and ask, what do you see as an improvement? And the only reason I say that is not based on the news and what people say on TV, but just friends and family and people that I know have all told me how much trouble they're having. It's like we're paying for it out of pocket anyway.
I'll tell you what happened personally with me. I lost my job. I was able to get Obamacare, and I'm paying now like $81 a month because some of it's subsidized. But before Obamacare, I couldn't get private market insurance that was anything other than a catastrophic policy. So if I was in a car accident or I got cancer or something, I might get. But going to the doctor, I was paying for it out of my. We have a mutual friend whose name that I won't mention, who said that the day that Obamacare, she was born with a hole in her heart. The day that Obamacare passed was the first time in her life that she'd ever been able to get insurance. Because, now I don't know if she was able to get insurance through her husband or not, but her own insurance because of pre-existing condition. So I don't see how anybody could argue with the pre-existing condition.
Right, yeah. I've always hated and I know somebody else that has the same situation, not a hole in the heart, but has a pre-existing condition and couldn't get insurance and now has it. And that's good.
But my point was that's where, again, if Obama were really the liberal that the right thinks that he is, he would have come in with single payer, and then the compromise maybe would have been something like Obamacare, but there was never any indication that he had any interest in, and this is part of to me, where I think I often say that I think politics is like professional wrestling. The Republicans, the Democrats fight it out, on camera, just like the wrestlers used to and probably still do, and then they're all friends behind the scenes.
Right.
The Republican and the Democrat establishment are there to protect the status quo and to protect big business. You can make arguments about which businesses they're covering, but Obama was never going to do anything that was going to really jeopardize the insurance companies. And like I said, I mean, they've been connected from the beginning. Another area where I have a problem with Obama, and I feel that Hillary, definitely is this way too. One of the major things that needed to be fixed when he came in is the big banks that destroyed the economy. And nothing while he's been done in office has been even attempted to try to keep that. The market is going to crash again. We're going to have another recession or big depression.
Let's go to, since you brought up Hillary, let's try to briefly get your thoughts on Hillary and Bernie. I don't even remember O'Malley's the other guy running.
Yeah, he doesn't stand. I mean, he doesn't stand a chance.
Bernie and Hillary, what are your thoughts?
Bernie is, he's gaining on Hillary. I think, and I know this is the case. The view on the left is, I think this is going to be a really interesting election, because we could have, if it would come out to be Bernie versus Trump, then you really have a choice. There's the right and the left. Although, I think Trump gets into some things that it's been surprising a bit to me with Trump, that he says things that if he were any other Republican, he would get attacked for.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I like the most about Trump, I hate political correctness. And ever since it started back in I guess in the 90s is when it really started picking up, I hated political correctness. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I want to be able to say what I want to say. And sometimes when I say what I say, I don't mean, I'm not even going to say, it's funny, I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking right now, because I know it'll offend so many people. But there's certain
shows called Dr. WOP. So
well, yeah, but that's different. No. If I were to say, man, that's retarded, okay? There, I said it. I don't mean I'm making fun of you because you're mentally challenged and handicapped.
Right.
It's just something you said. I grew up saying it. Kids said that. It's retarded. It just means that's stupid. You can still say that's stupid. They mean they're one and the same. I'm not meaning to offend anybody.
Right.
It's and people can say whatever they want to me, and it's not going to offend me.
Right.
But everybody got so touchy-feely, and that's one thing where Trump's coming out and he says, I forget what it was I saw on the news the other day. He said, I'm a very smart person. I went to this school and I'm very educated and I can say smart things, but what better word is there than stupid? Mm-hmm. Did you see him say that? I love that.
Yeah.
That's and what I really like is that he is not a politician. And coming from what you said about the whole left and the right and how you think that they're
professional wrestling.
Yes, professional wrestling. That's great. I love that, because that's what I feel like everything, the left, the right, Ford versus Chevy, the Green Bay Packers, Pepsi and Coke. Yeah, sports, drinks, vehicles, everybody is fighting so that you're confused and you're not paying attention to the real deal. Don't have your eye on the ball. Come here, baby.
We can do that. That's okay.
Okay.
This is Isabella. She's my little daughter and my baby, and this is Grayson over here saying, what about me? And these are the reasons that you should vote for Trump, because they need to have a good future.
It's going pretty well, huh?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I've got way more than I need.
Okay.
This is gonna be,
Well, you can edit to just the good stuff.
If I was allowed to vote, I'd vote for Trump. Bye.
Politicians say things all the time to get elected that they know isn't going to happen.
Right.
Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen this this is something that I want to ask you about. Just in the last couple of days, Bernie has come out and said that he would cap credit cards at 15%. So what do you think about that?
Well, I did not hear that. I have not heard your first news source for me on that. My first thought is, why is it his power or control or whatever to tell a private business or bank or whatever what they can charge a customer? I think credit card rates are outrageous,
right,
and I think they're terrible, and they should. I wish they were not so high. However,
I mean, we used to have something called usury laws where the maximum interest that could be charged was 10%. I mean, that's been a long time since that's existed, but I mean, that goes back to maybe the Middle Ages. I don't know, but I mean, I know it goes back to, before the United States was a country, but to me, that's something where I feel like people on the right will kind of say that well, you can't tell a private business to do that. I think he's going to get a lot of play out of that, because I think a lot of people, left or right, are going to be like, yeah, credit cards are ridiculous. I mean, which you said the same thing. Right. If Trump said that, I think Republicans would be like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
You're going to have your people that are always diehard either way that agree with whatever is said.
Now, that's something that I think Bernie means that. I don't think that he actually, is just saying, okay, this is something I'm just going to say to try to get elected. However, if he does get elected, he's going to have a really hard time getting that through.
Right.
I mean,
What about this, just as an example of that? Let's say Bernie said, I think professional sports are too expensive for the common American, the normal, every U.S. citizen to be able to go to a professional football game. So I think that they're not allowed to sell tickets for more than $45, and they can't charge more than $5 for a beer. And
I would not be in favor of that. I mean,
but is that not the same thing? He's picking and choosing who he should say you're not allowed to charge. It's a free country, free market. You're not allowed to charge that amount of money. If it's supply and demand, and people want to go see that NFL game, they're going to pay for it.
Well,
and if they want to use credit, and that's what's available is 29% interest. They're an adult. They're going to make that choice.
I'll answer that with another example. West Virginia. We live in West Virginia on the West Virginia-Ohio border. West Virginia has made the payday loan places illegal. So you go across the border into Ohio, and what's the first thing you see when you get is the payday loan places.
Right.
So,
There she goes again.
Those are a private business, but the governor of the government of the state has said, this is they're basically scamming people. I mean, yes, people could choose not to go there. I think the credit cards are a little bit different than going to a football game. I mean, you don't have to have a credit card, but
what about Bernie's a socialist? We're going to be living under socialism.
Here's the thing. I mean, Bernie admits that he's a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. Now, here's the problem that we get into with that is people conflate socialism and communism. They're not the same thing. Bernie has talked about, free college. Okay. Think about it this way. If we had, let's say if all of your kids go to public school, right? Mm-hmm. That's socialism. I don't have children, but part of my tax money is going to pay for other people's kids to go to school. I think that's a good thing. I'm happy to have my money go to that. If, let's say we had just always been private school, we had never had public, K through 12 education. If Bernie Sanders were proposing that, people on the right would be saying, yeah, but that's socialism. Yeah, it's socialism, but but you don't think of that as socialism because we've always had it and you like it.
Right. I don't necessarily like public schools. I don't like the public school system.
But
there's a lot I disagree about with the public school system.
I mean, take the problems that you have with the public school system. You like the idea that there's free public education, right?
It's helpful. However, if things,
I mean, would you prefer we're all privatized?
I would like to have private schools, and my one of my kids actually went to a private school, and we loved it, and he excelled, and I went to a private school.
Yeah, we both went to private and public schools, so we've seen both sides of it.
Right, and I think private schools are great.
But not everybody can.
But if the tax system was set up differently, and if you had more of your own money, and you could afford to you could pay for your own schooling if you had your own money. But we keep taking more and more and more away, and that's where I was going with the Bernie Sanders thing. He has said he basically came out and said he doesn't. Now, not that he says he's going to do this, but he doesn't think it's wrong to take 90% of your income so that he can pay for everything for you.
We can't have lower taxes and have all the things that we have now.
Why not? Wasn't there a time back in the early 1900s, or maybe it was when there were no taxes?
There were no taxes. You know why? You know why that was?
No.
Our government was funded by tariffs now, which is something that Trump has talked about. I just looked this up the other day. The tariffs, in the early 1900s on imports, it was 20%. Now it's 2%. So that's one of our major problems that we have is that no one wants, you could get rid of the income tax if you wanted to put high tariffs on goods that were coming into the United States, but the Congress, which is owned by the corporations, isn't going to allow that to happen. Right. With socialism, I wanted to talk about the education thing for just a minute. So Bernie wants to have, that college would be free. His plan is a little bit different from Hillary's because, she's not saying totally free.
Yeah,
college.
she was paid the first 2 years.
Yeah, or you'd get reimbursed. And I don't know all the details about Bernie's plan. One, and this is something that most countries in the world, it's kind of like with healthcare, most countries in the world have free or very cheap college. So there's two issues there that I think we need to look at. We need to have real higher education reform. And Bernie has talked about this, but the costs of college are totally out of hand. And
I agree with that.
Part of that is kind of like with everything else, college has become just another big business where you've got the administrators at the top that make lots and lots of money, and there's all these hundreds of millions of dollars spent on sports, which I love college sports, but that's out of hand. And the people who are actually doing the teaching are adjuncts who are paid virtually nothing. So that needs to be addressed. Also, I feel like you can't just say, okay, anybody who wants to go to college, it's free, you're going to do the cliche thing of underwater basket weaving. I think a smart way to do it would be to say, okay, these are the top 20 jobs that are going to be in demand over the next 30 years or whatever. If you major in one of those, you can go to school for free or very little money. If you want to major in poetry, you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket. I don't think that's unreasonable. When we talk about socialism, the GI Bill was socialism. And I think just about everybody viewed it as a good thing. The guys that came back from World War II got money to go to school. Now, of course, back then college was much less expensive, but they got money to go to school, and the number's something like for every dollar that was put in, $8 or $10 went back into the economy because those guys got better jobs than they would have gotten if if they hadn't gone to college. So that was an investment. It wasn't just, okay, we're going to give everybody free money and then they just don't do anything.
Right.
Those guys got better jobs than they normally would have, and it helped the economy.
What if the said student they go to college for free to be a doctor or whatever, good approved field of study is,
and they never get a job.
And they don't finish. Not they don't get a job. Let's just say they go for 2 years, 3 years. They goof off. They do okay with grades, but then they kind of just use it to have something.
I don't think it would be any different than a scholarship if somebody there definitely should be restrictions on it and standards that people have to meet. It's just like if somebody has a scholarship, you have to keep a certain grade point average or you lose the scholarship. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Here's what we're having. Germany has a population problem. We have a decent population growth because of Hispanics. Germany doesn't have that. So they're trying to lure people from other countries, including America. You could go to college, and some people are choosing to do this. You can go to college in Germany for free, and about half of those people that are going to, from other countries that are going to Germany to get their education are staying, which is what Germany's wanting. Mm-hmm. So,
do they offer American or English-speaking teachers, or do you have to learn to speak German?
I think you have to. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think you have to speak German, but. It's free for their citizens and it's free for other people going there. So they're viewing it as an investment. I think it will be like healthcare. I think we're going to, there'll be a little bit of tinkering to where because we're and I believe in higher education, but we're in a situation now where, like, when we were in college, when we were kids, it was, which hasn't been that long ago, it was kind of a no-brainer that you were going to go to college because that's how you bettered yourself. Now you have people, like, go to law school, and they get out of school with $200,000 in debt, and instead of being able to buy a new car or buy a new house, they're paying off the debt and not contributing to the economy much at all. I mean, other than just, the normal bills that they're paying. Whereas, from a business standpoint, you know, if I was Ford Motor Company, I'd be saying, yeah, free college, you know, because rather than those kids graduating and paying off a huge, you know, $50,000 or $100,000, they're going to buy a car.
One thing I would like to say before we close is Trump for president. I don't know who I want to see as a running mate. Yeah, I saw just one last thing. I saw a spoof where they were asking a fake Trump, and they were like, "Who do you want? Who are you going to have as your vice president, as your running mate?" And I said, "Oh, vice presidents are losers. I don't want losers." So he's just going to.
He's going to be the first president ever with no vice president.
Right. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching this. It means a lot to me that you watch. Please subscribe to my channel. That means a lot to me as well. I appreciate having Chris here to talk with us.
It's great to be here, Doc.
Thanks again. So we will see you next time on Doc WOP and the special effects. And don't forget, episode 3 coming up soon. There's going to be 2 special guests. You don't want to miss it. See you later.
My name is Barack Obama.